Hello there, and welcome to The Metagame, the weekly live streaming show right here on Pair of Dice Paradise, where we talk about board games and sometimes talk about talking about board games. And when I say we, I don't just mean me, I mean the YouTube chat that follows along during our live stream as well. We often discuss topics along with the live stream, and today is going to be no exception, because today I am, as the title of this episode suggests, I am coming with no agenda included, no personal agenda included. Because I want to kind of just touch base with the chat. I was thinking about it this week, and I was thinking more and more about how this show is, really integral. The chat is integral to this show, and lots of times I'll present the topic and we'll discuss it. But today I really wanted to focus on this group of friends I've gotten to know on the chat, and new people always that come across as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to discuss a few little newsy notes that I have at first, and then I'm going to go over to the chat and see what today's discussions about board games are going to be. And when we are discussing board games and whatnot in the chat, if you are here in our live stream and have something that you would like to contribute and have post for consideration on the show, go ahead and add the hashtag TMG for the metagame to your post, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my web browser's search tool in the chat window. I'm going to search for that hashtag. It's going to light those up, kind of make them float to the top. And that way, that will help your post be seen easier and not get lost in the shuffle of the streaming flowing chat as easily. But first, a few newsy news bits. Excuse me, a few newsy news bits. First of all, I just want to say I'm in awe and really happy for the Secret Cabal. Congratulations. The Secret Cabal launched a Kickstarter 3 days ago now, the day before yesterday, to basically raise enough money to allow their primary host, Jamie Keggy, to do their podcast, The Secret Cabal, full time. And within 36 hours, they hit not only their goal, but their ultimate stretch goal, which would allow Jamie to actually have the podcast be his full-time job. They did it. They did it in a day and a half. And their Kickstarter still has a month to go. So I just want to say congratulations to Jamie. He's a really excellent professional podcaster and a really good friend, and really happy for you. So congrats. The other thing too, speaking of money being changed hands and whatnot, there was a contest in the last half of March on Pair of Dice Paradise, hosted in part by Pod P and Fun Again Games, where we had a survey on the Pair of Dice Paradise website. And people who filled out this survey, based on how many questions they answered, would be entered into a drawing for a $250 gift certificate to Fun Again Games. Well, contest has ended. I've been spending the greater part of my spare time this week tabulating, counting up all of the entries. I just want to let you guys know that a winner has been randomly selected in that contest. I have sent off an email right before the show to the winner to contact them. So if you are wondering, check your email and including your spam folder, because receiving an email from a new contact about a $250 contest is probably something that will get marked as spam. So check your spam folders. I am also going to be creating a video ASAP, a separate video that I will be posting on the Pod P channel to announce the winner. So keep an eye later today, hopefully, for that video to go up that will have the official announcement. But also check your email, because someone out there has an email with the $250 gift certificate code in it. So now, the last thing, newsy news I wanted to mention was actually something about board games. I just wanted to mention 3 games that I have been playing recently, and then we're going to turn over to the chat. Just in case you're curious about what's been hitting my own table, the 3 games I have played most recently have been Santorini, which is the somewhat very thematic, abstract game of building up these white little houses on the island of Santorini, and kind of moving workers climbing up these little houses as you build them. And the first person to get one of their 2 workers up to a 3rd story of their house wins. And it's just a simple, quick little game. I've played with my daughter, and also my wife and daughter. We've all played, all 3 of us together. And the game takes usually between, I'd say, 15 to 30 minutes. When you're playing 3 players, it usually seems to take about 30 minutes. So it's not that long. It's really fun and challenging. And they also have several different asymmetrical player powers that you can add. But I have found that those are somewhat imbalanced. There's a certain one that if it's in play, I've never seen it lose. So I actually prefer Santorini, vanilla Santorini, instead of the version of Santorini with the asymmetrical player powers. That said, though, I also recently received the Golden Fleece expansion for Santorini, which adds Golden Fleece, actually adds a whole bunch of stuff. More player characters, more asymmetrical player powers, and more bits and goodies in the game. So this, actually, I'm planning on doing a video of opening this up and giving it a play and doing a review of the contents of this to see if Santorini still suffers from the same unbalanced asymmetrical player powers with the contents of this expansion, or if this solves it, and or how this ranks. So look for a video on this coming hopefully very soon, either on the Pair of Dice Paradise or the Dice Tower YouTube channels, where a lot of the game videos that we do are reviewed. And also I've been playing a game called Tak, T-A-K, which is a very abstract game, which is actually created in a novel series by an author with the last name of Ruthless, I think. But so basically this was a game he made up inside of his book series. They made a game out of it. It's an abstract 2-player game, similar to chess meets checkers almost in a way. And we've been enjoying it. Again, I'm planning on putting together a review for Tak as well. So hopefully first half of April, we'll see a review for Tak going up. But I thought it was decent and definitely worth a try. So there's a little mini review there. And lastly, I just wanted to mention that I finally got a chance last weekend to play the 2nd edition of Mansions of Madness. And this is the one where the app controls the dungeon master role, essentially. And what I thought, and it was fun, and I'd like to play it again, but what I thought was really interesting is we played a scenario that actually, instead of being just fighting Cthulhu monsters and stuff like that, it actually used the same game engine, but it was a murder mystery. So it was more like Scooby-Doo meets Cthulhu. And we were actually trying to solve this murder. A ghost appeared. I won't give too many spoilers, but I thought it was very, very light on monsters. And it was my first game of Mansions of Madness that I've played, so I always hear about shooting monsters and fighting monsters and all this stuff, and this was the polar opposite of that experience. And I thought it was very interesting that they were able to take this game engine, and it's so versatile that they were able to essentially make a murder mystery, Clue meets Scooby-Doo meets Cthulhu experience in this specific scenario. And I thought that was really neat that the game engine is that versatile to do. So I want to play a more typical game of Mansions of Madness to see how the more action-oriented monster fighting version of the game compares. But it was a pretty neat experience, and the app does do a wonderful job of guiding you along everything. All right. So now, with the newsy news bits out of the way, like I said, this episode, basically my personal agenda of a presentation I'm going to be doing this time. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the chat and scroll up and start my search and see where we go from here. Hooray! All right, so we have a couple of... Yes, things are being highlighted. We have a couple of... really bouncy today. I apologize for the bounciness. Every time I touch my mouse, the whole screen bounces. So apologize. I got some ideas for actually tightening up that, but it's going to take a little while. All right. Also, one other thing I should mention before we start. the questions. Just to let you know, we are currently in the middle of a very severe windstorm, and the power has already gone out once here today. So if we lose power or something happens, it's very possible that today's stream might get screwed up due to power issues. So, in fact, I just got a note that the lights flickered a little bit, and we may have just had some dropped frames, so I apologize for that. In fact, I'm going to write something in the chat right now about that. Reminder, we are experiencing a severe windstorm. It may affect power, and as a result, the quality of our internet connection. And I misspelled almost every word while I typed that. That is awesome. Okay. All right, severe windstorm or no, the show must go on, so let's go on with the show and see if we actually can. Okay, so we got the chat is moving, and what's really cool is recently the YouTube chat has not allowed me to scroll up anymore, so I can't go to the very beginning. So if there were some topics that were mentioned in the beginning of the show, you might need to repost them. So, okay, so, and the one I was just about to read just went away. Okay, so the first question that we have comes from Toyota Wolf, and before it scrolls away in our chat, he wanted to ask opinions on user-created content. Does user-created content help or hinder games? For example, user-created content for HeroScape. Well, that is an excellent question, and I think that in my own experience, let's hear from you guys what you guys have to say about user-created content. I have seen it go to both extremes. First of all, for example, I've mentioned the website HeroScapers, which continues to this day to create new original characters for the game HeroScape, creating more and more powers, abilities, and characters being introduced into the game. And I think that what's interesting about the user-created content in HeroScapers, it seems like they have a very specific vetting process for it. And they also have a kind of a formula or guidelines to prevent the characters from becoming overpowered that they create through HeroScapers.com. So I think that the user-created content that comes in, like, for example, through that website, really high quality, really well balanced, integrates into the game really well. The other example I would have was, I think I've mentioned this before, but that terrifying game of Spartacus that I played a couple years ago, where was at a local game day, and this gentleman came up and he said to a group of us standing there, "Would you care to play a game of Spartacus?" I was like, "Oh yeah, I've heard really good things about Spartacus. Let's play that." And so we sat down, and there was like 7, maybe 8 of us at the table. And it's like, well, Spartacus plays an awful lot of people. And the host of the game said, no, it actually doesn't play this many people, but I have every expansion and some homemade user-created content for new characters and other things that allow more players that we're going to play with everything. And the game must have gone, I don't know, the game went 3 hours, and then I ran out of time to say, to let them know, hey, at this point I have a cutoff time. We hit that cutoff time, and the game was only like half done. It was a mess of a game. It was a game that gave me cold sweats. It's a game unlike any other game I've ever played. And the user-created content made it a lopsided experience and a confusing experience because it was just too much different stuff. And true, I was the first time I had played it, I was a new player, but it was it was just a game that boggled my mind with its intricate complexities. And so I think user created content, I think, does help a game if it can go through a filter, someone else's mind as well, a filter of being reviewed and vetted to make sure that it's balanced and integrates into the game correctly. So what about you guys? So there's 2 extreme experiences with user-created content. So what do you guys think? What has your experience been with user-created content? And what games what are some games where you've used user-created content? What kind of content has that been? If we start to see some comments about that in the chat, I will touch on those as we go along. But in the meantime, I'm going to go along. And again, I apologize. The last couple times we've done this show, once the chat scrolls off the screen, I can no longer go up and get the previous chats anymore. YouTube's kind of changed their interface. I've actually been lucky and grabbed everything just in time beforehand and kind of been able to hide that. But today stuff has scrolled away. So we're up to the next highlighted TMG comment is from Darth Grader. Hello again, Darth. Good to see you. He's actually has a comment to another person in the chat, but also mentions the hashtag. So I'm going to read your comment, Darth. Darth's comment is at another person in the chat. And he says, okay, well, that was unimpressive. He says that basically, I second Toyota Wolf's early topic ideas for user-created content ideas, the pros and cons. Ha! Well, Darth, without even realizing it, I took you up on your suggestion of seconding that, and we did that. So it's now been done and will probably continue as more people contribute to the chat. That's one of the fantastic effects that you get from doing live streaming in real time without looking at the chat ahead of time. So there we go. Serendipity. All right. Ryan P., since you posted, Ryan, I'm going to read your post here. Topic, microwaves. I will touch on this, but extremely briefly, because this is an ongoing saga. And I actually, I was going to go and take a picture of the current microwave setup and post it here, but I ran out of time with the storm and some of the problems with the power and everything and the internet connection that we had beforehand. So I didn't get a chance. I was actually waiting. I was going to be poised, I tell you, and ready to pounce on someone that mentioned my ongoing search for a new microwave. And I was going to show you a picture of my current microwave setup, but I failed at that. Maybe next time I'll surprise you with that. Because, wow, microwave, excitement. The only thing better than talking about microwaves would be talking about board games instead. So let's go back to the chat and see if we can make that happen. Darth continues with a few more comments. Darth continues to say, I would love to hear a group brainstorm of underused themes or theme mechanism pairings. As a starter, how has no one ever made a good Zorro game? For example, I heard a podcast a couple months ago that suggested retheming Queen's Gambit with a Matrix theme. Okay, first of all, let's work in reverse here, Darth. Queen's Gambit with a Matrix theme? Yes, please. That's like begging to happen right there. That would be fantastico. I think that theme would integrate perfectly into the mechanisms of Queen's Gambit. Wow. Now I want that really bad. And also, really, are there any other Matrix games? The only other game that's close to the Matrix that I can think of would be, let's say, I'm looking at my game shelf, Splendor. And the only thing that prevents that from being a Matrix game is that it is actually completely different and isn't about the Matrix theme at all. So that's, I think as close as we got. So the Matrix needs to have their license go out to board game developers. But as for a group brainstorming underused themes, well, actually, Darth, I don't know if you've ever participated in them, but there is a game that we play on some episodes. We've done it a couple of times, and people have seemed to like it, and it'll probably come back in the future, where I start with a list of different intellectual properties and a list of different game mechanisms. I roll a dice and randomly pair them up, and then myself, along with the chat, we actually brainstorm ideas of that theme with those mechanisms to come up with several different game ideas based on those pairings. And it's actually a lot of fun when we do it. And we come up with some actually pretty silly ideas, but there's always, every episode that we do that, there's one or two actually, I think, usable ideas that come out of that. So, Darth, if you get a chance next time we do one of those, keep an eye on, and probably I'd say maybe this summer, probably do it a couple of times a year. So maybe later this summer we'll do another episode of that theming game, if anyone else wants to. So let me know in the comments if you'd like to do that, and we'll schedule it up for a future episode. In the meantime, we're going to continue on to the chat in this episode, which comes next from a show regular and friend of the show, Kabuki Kid. Kabuki Kid states that there also needs, not just wants. Kabuki says there needs. So drawing the line, she's drawn a line in the sand right here. Kabuki says there needs to be a proper Mad Max game. I'm guessing that's coming though. I wonder, again, if it's just a case of the actual Mad Max property not being licensed. That's why there's not a proper game that actually is branded as Mad Max. However, I think that the upcoming Wasteland Express by Pandasaurus, which I believe should be coming out May, June, I think by Origins, in June, July at least, it should be coming out. Wasteland Express is one of the closest games to a Mad Max vibe that I've played. I got a chance to play it at Gamma last month at the Gamma trade show, and I liked it. Pandasaurus it should be hooking me up with a review copy of it, because I waited for this game since Origins last year, when I interviewed the people that were associated with it back at Origins 2015, 16? Yes, 2016, last year, in 2016 at Origins. I got excited about the game then, and so I've kind of been in communication with Pandasaurus, and hopefully we'll have a proper overview and review of Wasteland Express coming up later this spring, and that will hopefully give you a chance to see if the game is Mad Maxian enough to wet your whistle, which... Be careful if you do that in a Mad Max, because water is so scarce. You need to wet your whistle very, very conservatively. Don't do it too liberally, or else you'll end up in a fight for more water, and that's no fun. That's as little fun as it is continuing to talk on this train of thought. So let me just cut off that rabbit trail I was going down, and let me come back to the chat. So next topic is from Toyota, who says a good topic would be a microwave update. Been there, done that. Rewind a little bit and you'll see that amazing microwave update. So we'll continue on to Trevin, who joins us once again to pitch some things at me. So I'll get out my catching hands and I'll try to catch your pitches here, Trevin. Trevin says, if we're pitching topic ideas, that episode where we had public domain themes and common mechanisms and we thought of games was my favorite. Hey, that's exactly the couple of episodes that I was just talking about. Thank you, time travel aspect of the chat, how I'm always kind of speaking with... It's like you guys are a star and your chat is light and it takes several minutes to reach me. And so we get this neat time travel effect. I'm actually, in a way, I'm communicating with younger versions of yourselves in the chat. And that makes it kind of special and also kind of spooky now that I say it out loud. But yeah, I'm afraid. But let's continue on, since we have now another vote for another episode of the IP theming game. We'll put the little hash mark for another yes vote for that. But we'll continue on in the meantime to the next couple of chat things here. I see there's like 5, so let me go before the chat starts to scroll away. Kabuki mentions... Kabuki says to Chaz, who is me, so I shall read this. Darth Grader, who is the other person in the chat who was talking earlier, specifically wanted one of us... to ask about the possibility of a microwave microbadge for BGG, then laughs at me. Okay, if you are going to pose that, I will call your bluff, and I know I made the original microbadge, so I know the process of how it's done. Board Game Geek is it's pretty strict. Oh, there's a good vetting. Again, I guess that's the word of the day. There's a good vetting process for creating micro badges on Board Game Geek, but I have done the process before, so I'm kind of familiar with it. I know where to go. So I will see about creating a micro badge for BGG, unless anyone else out there wants to do it. Go for it. But I will see about creating the official Pair of Dice Paradise microwave micro badge for BGG. You guys, you flatter and baffle me constantly. I'm continually surprised and baffled. But let's continue on to the baffling, surprising comment that is next from Ryan P. again, who hopefully it looks like gets us back on topic by asking, why do some expansions come out / get announced before the base game is even readily available? Examples: Role Player and Tiny Epic Galaxies. That is actually an excellent question, and actually one that I think deserves being a separate segment. Actually maybe contacting some of the people that do that and doing some kind of investigative journalism for you guys. I think I could make a segment out of that, a video to answer that question, because that is a very good question. Off the top of my head, my uneducated guess would be several different reasons. One may be that some companies, some developers perhaps, if it's their first game or a new game or they're a new company, maybe they have a big idea that they want for the game, but they don't have enough resources to produce the whole thing. So they produce maybe the base game hoping that it will take off enough that they can then produce the expansion for it to kind of fill in their mental gaps of what they wanted it to be. And again, I'm not saying anyone specifically has done this. I'm just wondering out loud if this could be the case. Because splitting it in that way would allow them to get the game produced at an affordable rate. But then, of course, they also then already have the expansion materials ready to go when the game is first developed. So that might be one possibility. The other possibility is, excuse me, companies that want to try and revitalize a game. Perhaps the game's been out for a while, or well, I guess that doesn't really actually fit with what you're talking about, because you're talking about when it's announced or in development. So revitalizing a game, that actually wouldn't fit. So I'm going to throw that idea in the bin. The other idea then, the third of the three, was, let's take like Rising Sun, for example. The Cool Mini or Not Kickstarter for Rising Sun recently ended, and they had lots of expansions and lots of Kickstarter editions and stuff that they were announcing and releasing as the Kickstarter went along in order to increase the stretch goals. Now, obviously, a lot of their stretch goals were little, very beautiful sculpted minis. So they weren't, we're not making these miniatures, these sculptures and all the rules that go with these characters. They weren't making those as the Kickstarter was going along. Each day, let's make another mini. We're hitting another stretch goal. They had these prepared ahead of time, months and months ahead of time. So in this case, the expansions and the add-ons were produced ahead of time, I believe, specifically to help motivate more funding in their Kickstarter campaign and raise interest as the game was going along. They always had these things, planned to be created ahead of time. And in their case, instead of the first scenario of releasing the game small, hoping it's a hit, being able to afford to create an expansion, they used the expansion to help entice people to invest in the game up front. So kind of the other side of that coin. So again, talking off the top of my head, that's just been what I've seen, my experience, my hypothesis. So Ryan, hopefully that helps spur the conversation even more so others can provide their point of view on it. Okay. Michael asks an interesting question that hasn't come up on the show before. So Michael asks, do you have a top 3, 5, or 10 Kickstarter or Indiegogo backings? Top 3 or whatever, however many fundraising campaigns that I have backed. That's a really interesting question. And I think I've mentioned before on previous episodes that I'm not much, I back only maybe 2, maybe 3 things a year on different crowdfunding platforms. And to be honest, the majority of what I back actually is other content creators. So since you asked, free plugs here. The best Kickstarter campaigns that I've backed have been, one was Rodney Smith of Watch It Played. I'll back him all the time because what he has created is something unique and I think very useful to the industry. Just backed the Secret Cabal podcast day before yesterday. So that's another one that's fresh on my mind. And I did back Rising Sun by Cool Mini or Not. I didn't back Blood Rage. And the reason why I think Blood Rage and Rising Sun are, I think, somewhat similar. They're not the same game, but they have some similarities. The reason I backed Rising Sun instead of Blood Rage is because Rising Sun says it includes the aspect of diplomacy. And so it adds some negotiation and diplomacy in the game. And that's what hooked me into Rising Sun. Another thing that I back all the time, of course, is the Dice Tower. I'll back the Dice Tower's annual fundraiser. And I backed Rolling Dice and Taking Names because Marty and Tony are good friends of mine. And I enjoy their content. They even have me on their show for some weird reason every now and then. So that's always flattering. But I enjoy what they do a lot. They stand out to me. So the content creators that really stand out to me are what I back. And Scythe was, trying to think of some games, another game. Scythe was another one that I backed. I do not regret backing Scythe at all. That was a wonderful experience. Jamie Stegmaier is amazing in how he runs a campaign and communicates to his backers. So Scythe was like one I was glad to back. And I'm not going to talk about the bad experiences I've had because that wasn't the question. So I'm going to just stop there. Okay. Oh, we've scrolled away. I apologize for anyone that I just missed. I'm going to try widening this up. Nope, can't scroll upwards. Okay, so we're back to the point where I announced the severe windstorm. That's where we are in the chat. So let's go to the next comments and questions that are in this chat for the second half of our programming here. Kabuki mentions that I would love a Babylon 5 game. And not only that, she says, I'd love a good Babylon 5 game. So good. We're raising the standards there. I would love a good Babylon 5 game, but I know it's too old now and to really warrant much attention. Kabuki Kid, I hope among hope that you are incorrect in that, because I too would love a good Babylon 5 game. When sci-fi themes come up in my friends' discussion, more if we had a Star Trek game that was like this, or have you seen the latest Star Wars game? And they talk about sci-fi properties that need a game. Babylon 5 is always the one where I butt into the conversation and say, we need a Babylon 5 game, everyone. And then they all nod and they continue on their way. But I agree. I think I'm hoping that the license isn't so old that you couldn't make it. But other games, really good games, highly praised games, have been created off older licenses than that. Cthulhu? I mean, that's public domain at this point. That's old. Pillars of the Earth is based off of a book. And that's pretty obscure. I'm not sure how old the book is. But I'm sure there's more, but that's just a couple off the top of my head that are, and I don't even know if those are fair to examples to use. But I think that if a property is loved and strong enough, that it's possible that it could be revitalized in that way. Case in point, let's talk about Battlestar Galactica. Now, the series for Battlestar Galactica has ended, but that game is so strong. The Battlestar Galactica board game is so strong. I believe it will continue being played for decades, into the decade to come and longer. It's far going to outlive the television show that's based on. So eventually, the Battlestar Galactica game will be based on an old television property. So there might be hope for other old sci-fi television properties. Again, I think the trick is doing it right. Okay, Scrolly Scroll Chat. Hello, Scrolly Scroll Chat. We see here one from Michael, who has a topic idea of expansions that need to be done. This is something I spoke with recently on another podcast that I was on for the Passport Game Studios podcast. We talked about games that need expansions. And I can't remember what my game was that I said needs an expansion. So that's helpful. But what do you guys think? What's a game that needs an expansion? If I was put on the spot, as I am, and I was to look over at my game shelf, I know exactly what game needs an expansion. And you know what? I'm not going to go grab it because I think I'd knock over my studio lights if I did. So I'm going to describe it orally, verbally, with words that are better than this description. The game Holmes, Sherlock versus Mycroft. I should have gone and grabbed the game. There's this game that came out last year, Holmes, Sherlock versus Mycroft, where it's basically a little card game and worker placement and cards. And the two players, one plays Sherlock Holmes, one plays Mycroft. It's and basically you are collecting clue tokens by interrogating different suspects. But if you interrogate them too frequently, they hide for a round and they're not available the next round. So you have all of these different people throughout the town that you are investigating. Each round, each day of the week, a new person appears in town. So the list of people you can interrogate grows throughout the week. It's a game I really enjoy. I really like it a lot. And if there was a game that I think needs an expansion, I would love to see more characters and one other new mechanism twist, one new idea introduced in the game, one more thing you can do. I think the game is ripe for that. And I would love to see whatever it was called. I would love to see Holmes, Sherlock versus Mycroft. I would love to see that game get an expansion. What about you guys? What games would you like to see get an expansion? Let me know in the chat or those comments down below. Okay, the chat has scrolled on to the next comment here, which is from Michael. Michael wants to know about a topic of campaign modes for games without campaign modes. That's an awesome, fantastic idea for for an episode. In fact, that's probably one that we could branch off into its own entire episode. Michael's examples that he gives would be like Scythe and Zombicide. Those are really good. Scythe, especially, I think that you could would be really good one for creating some sort of campaign continuity from one game to the next. Whereas what happened in the previous game has consequences that carry over to the next game that you play in like a series. Fantastic one. Okay, off the top of my head, I'll try to pick three games I think could benefit from a campaign mode. First of all, how's about Terra Mystica? I have only dabbled in Terra Mystica a bit, so I have not enjoyed the full flavor that Terra Mystica has to offer to the player. But I think that Terra Mystica, with its complexity and its options and the expansion that came out, I think Terra Mystica would be a good one for some sort of campaign continuity. How about also, I just had it on the tip of my brain. I was looking right at it. It's right over here on my shelf, and now I can't remember what it was. So good job, me. Oh, it was Suburbia. How about something with Suburbia, where the cities that you create somehow carry over? Perhaps the best city starts out retained in the middle of the board with its global effects still affecting everyone the next game. Or it just sits there, or it decays and people move out of that city and you actually are harvesting resources and stuff out of that city possibly, and also sharing it with the other players. In short, I don't know. But Suburbia might be one that actually could have an interesting campaign system that I think would be a really different one. And a third one, how's about Oh, that would be the easy answer would be Star Wars Rebellion. So let's not go there. Let's not go to Star Wars Rebellion. That's too easy. How about, well, actually, excuse me, I have something that's in the back of my throat today. How about Marvel Legendary with the cards and the whatnot and the villains and the heroes? I actually, my wife and I really enjoy playing Legendary together. We still haven't beat Apocalypse, but we've discussed creating some sort of variation on the game to introduce some sort of continuity, go through all the characters, or have some sort of consequences when you play. Marvel Legendary would be another one I think would be a benefit from campaign modes. Like I said, excellent, excellent topic idea, and maybe one to visit in a dedicated episode completely about that topic idea. But for now, if you guys have more ideas for those, let me know, and we'll get to it in our chat below if we get that far, and our chat will become very sporadic and strange as we have all these different topics being responded to. But let's continue on with a post by Suzanne Sheldon of App Review and Board Game Breakfast Kickstarter news, and just generally being an awesome member of the online board gaming community fame. Suzanne joins us to actually say something. I'm not going to read it. No, yeah. Suzanne joins us to say, Time Stories has a user-created scenario coming up. Oh, interesting. So what I want to know, Suzanne, perhaps you can clarify, does this mean it is a unofficial scenario created by players? Or is it an official scenario being published by the publishers of the game that was created by a player? Which one of those is it? And I would love to know, because it's always interesting to see how the player community interacts with the actual publishers in the board game hobby. There seems to be a lot of back and forth sometimes in certain games. So I'd love to know which one it was, Suzanne. And thank you very much for joining us today. The next question, though, is not from Suzanne. It's again from Ryan, who picks up from where Suzanne left off by saying to us, I only play user content if it's been peer reviewed. Oh, like I was mentioning, on Board Game Geek, Heroescapers, etc. So another vote there, yes, on having vetting or having a peer review of user created content. And Board Game Geek, of course, there's user scenarios and content on there as well. One game that I think the only way the game is going to ever continue is going to be through the efforts of user-created content is, unfortunately, Battleship Galaxies. One of my all-time favorites. One of the specific games that got me back into the modern board gaming hobby. Battleship Galaxies withered on the vine, but there is, I have it bookmarked somewhere, there is a very, very extremely well-written series of posts on Board Game Geek that dissect, reverse engineer the formulas to create new ships and things for whatever the game's called. Battleship Galaxies. It's not Starship Galaxies, Battleship Galaxies. But they've dissected, reverse engineered the formulas to create the ships and everything. And so they have guidelines for how to do that. It's a fantastic post. So anyone that, again, is looking for good, vetted, peer-reviewed content, that's another game, Battleship Galaxies being its name, that has some sort of peer-reviewed user base making suggestions on how to make balanced new additions to the game. Kabuki Kid mentions, speaking earlier about promos, she says, how many of them are truly useful and desirable? How many of them change the game enough to really warrant being used and sought out? Again, here's another topic that we could branch off potentially into its own separate episode. Promos, because it is a really good question. And one that I can't really answer off the cuff and do it justice, I think. Because I'm trying to think of games where the promos, I'm really excited. Actually, King of Tokyo is one where I like the promos because, and I think one of the reasons is the promos just kind of plug right into the game. You don't have to learn anything new. It's just a new monster and you have a new standee and that's all there is. But that's been some I've been drawn to. A lot of other promos, you're right, do seem tacked on, made after the fact. Another game, though, that I do enjoy the promos for is Dominion, actually. And again, maybe because they're just more cards and they don't necessarily reinvent the game. But the promos that I've seen in Dominion, I've really enjoyed as well. So I think it varies by game and what the promos do. And again, this is a topic that I think is really worth digging into as a dedicated episode because it's one of those topics that probably requires a bit more research and discussion and instead of just being a passing comment. So thank you for the awesome suggestion there, Kabuki Kid. I think we're going to take that one and put it on the list to branch off into its own dedicated episode in the Futura at some time in the future. And Kabuki also just mentions real quick about promos. Are they worth it? Saying the same can almost be said about Kickstarter exclusives as well, which I would agree. Sren says, how about board games about microwaves? Okay. Sure, Sren. Like I mentioned, surprised and baffled all the time by the chat, but I love it. So that's actually would be a unique premise for board game. I'm just saying it would be totally original. We should think about that. We should make it happen. Oh, you just gave me an idea. Okay, let's continue on. Suzanne mentions that the Android Netrunner universe could be translated to the Matrix pretty easily. Now, Android Netrunner just recently announced, a legacy type edition that they're making for their game. And actually, the Matrix IP in a Android-based legacy environment would be fantastic. You could have characters, that you think are going to make it, and you could pull a George R.R. Martin and just kill off a main character that's integral to it, rip up their card, or at least put them aside to not play anymore, but keep the card for future use because ripping it up would probably drive you mental. But an Android-based mechanisms, legacy style environment, Matrix game. Yes, Suzanne, I agree with your idea. And I think, like I said, there's even further that you could take this idea. And I think it has great potential there. So, ooh la la. So let's continue on, though, with Stefan, who says, speaking of themes, I wonder about good sci-fi games that aren't 4X or spaceship or spaceships or combat units. I, speaking just from my own experience and perspective, and I reserve the right to be completely wrong on this, I get the feeling, and please correct me, give me examples of how I am wrong, people, but I think that good sci-fi games that aren't 4X or spaceships or combat units that actually come out get overlooked because they aren't those things. There was a game a couple of years ago, Journey to Neptune by Griggling Games, I think. I think I have it on a shelf somewhere. But Journey to Neptune, there was some other game, I think was last year or the year before. I remember hearing Eric Summerer talk about it, where you're guiding people onto ships in a way, or you're just kind of guiding people off planets, and the people are, the NPCs are basically little robots that are dumb. The game AI just controls them and you kind of herd them. But a lot of these games, it seems, if it doesn't have those aspects of space and sci-fi, again, I think get overlooked because they are lacking those things. And I would love to see a really good sci-fi game that incorporates sci-fi in a different way that actually could be a success. There is also AEG is re-releasing The Captain is Dead, which had, to me, more of a Space Quest, Galaxy Quest, more of a Galaxy Quest feel to it. You're just stuck on the ship and everything's going wrong, but you're on a ship, and there was some combat and stuff, but it was more kind of just a Euro-y solving, well, not really Euro-y, but it was more like solving problems type of thing. So anyway, maybe that's the next one that will come around. But anyway, let me know if you agree or disagree that one of the reasons that most sci-fi games are either 4X or spaceship combat or combat units. Let me know if you think the reason why most of them are that way is because the ones that aren't that way get overlooked. Well, let's find out. Kabuki Kid mentions that we also need a Blade Runner game, especially since a sequel is coming out this year. That is a fantastic IP that could have a lot of potential. Many different games could be based on the Blade Runner. And hey, someone in the chat talked about how they feared Babylon 5 was too old of a license to make a viable game off of. Well, what about Blade Runner? Some who look at the calendar may say that Blade Runner is even older than Babylon 5, but Blade Runner, I think, will get lots of people excited about it. So again, I don't think the age of the IP is necessarily a hinderment. It's more the level of excitement, and more importantly, I think the game that comes out of this IP. Okay, we are into the last 10 minutes, so I'm going to try and enter the lightning mode now and go through some questions here. The last 20 minutes just kind of snuck up on me. I apologize. But let's go to a comment by Christian. And Christian says, I am totally schizophrenic on promos. I totally despise them, and especially that they're sold by the publisher themselves these days. But as I have a lot from Essen, I trade a lot of them. Excellent point, Christian. And yes, that drives many people crazy and gives them that sort of schizophrenic view on them. Only thing about that I will say is that I wish that everyone who had a Kickstarter exclusive or a exclusive promo would, after 6 to 12 months, release it publicly. And instead of having Kickstarter exclusives, have like Kickstarter exclusive for a while. That's my point of view on it. And let's continue on because it is lightning round. And next to get hit by lightning is Michael, who says, do you host game nights at your place? And if so, how do you handle your daughter doing that? Does she go to grandma's, watch a movie, hang out with the adults, ... Question mark. Simple question, so I'll give you a quick answer. That is a very good question. I'm fortunate in that when I do have game nights at our house or we go to a friend's house, the friends that we have just happen to have sons or daughters who are just about the same age. In fact, one of my best friends here in town has a son who is less than a week younger than my daughter. So there's usually other kids to entertain each other while we play, and that's one way to do it. And the other thing is that some of the game groups that we go to are kid-friendly, the ones in town. And sometimes when they're not, my wife and I make arrangements to let her have a special day where I'll babysit so she can go off and do something with her friends. And then we'll trade off. And then the next day I'll go to my game club for the day as my special treat. And so those three things are the way that we balance it. So I hope that helps. So there you go. Mr. Wolf says that Wasteland Express looks hopeful for Mad Max-ish. Plus, Defenders of the Last Stand is close. Yes, Defenders of the Last Stand had some wrinkles, but also has a lot of good potential to it as well. Defenders of the Last Stand is definitely a Mad Maxian sound vibe to it. Christian says, going back to when I was talking about the chat being like a light coming off a distant star from the past, Christian just points out, Chaz, you're older when you read this. Now I'm depressed. But you're right. So thank you, Christian, in the past. We have Chaz in the future has now caught up to you to be the present. But of course, now when you're watching this, when it's not the live stream anymore, it's now we're both in the past. So my mind's blown. And the only thing I can do to retain my sanity at this moment is to continue on to the next chat comment. Toyota mentions, oh my goodness, a TMG topic, Chaz's celebrity status. How high is it? Incredibly low. And are there any paparazzis or just fanboys or fangirls? No and no. Thank goodness. I just don't see that happening anytime in the infinite future forever. Someone, I think it was, I can't remember who it was, but someone who actually is a pretty well-known YouTube celebrity, someone with millions and millions of subscribers and makes their living off of YouTube. One of them said, the great thing about being internet famous is that you turn off the camera and you go out in the real world, no one knows or cares who you are. So being internet famous, for those, not saying I'm not even close or on the radar, but those who are have the luxury of really in the real world still being a nobody. So it's kind of a nice thing about it. Let's see. Trevin mentions, have we done a metagame that was dedicated to Heroescape? Oh, no, we haven't. Oh, is that something that people would be interested in? We have Toyota right below him who says we should. So there's one vote. If you would be interested in a metagame episode dedicated to Heroescape, let me know in the comments because it's my favorite game. I would love to spend an episode talking about it. That would be cool if there is the interest from you guys to do so. See how many more of these I can go through. Next lightning question. Kabuki says, I wouldn't mind a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy game. Well, there we go. But I have no idea how it could be implemented or how gameplay would work. I agree. But, that's really the puzzle for any IP is figuring out a game that would work with it. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, lots of characters, lots of character to it. I think it's definitely one that's worth exploring. Michael mentions that the media that would make a good IP for games, books, movies, TV shows, web series, etc., why hasn't Geek and Sundry made the Guild game or Tabletop the game? That, is a really good question. And one that I can only answer by saying, I don't know. I wonder, though, if Geek and Sundry is accessible enough to actually have that question asked to them and if they would respond if they saw it. Only way to find out is we must track them down and force that question down their throat and demand an answer. Till then, I demand the next chat question. Kabuki mentions maybe a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy scenario for Time Stories. That would be awesome. That would be very awesome. There we go. Plugs right in. Trevin also mentions for Hitchhikers, I think that you would have to piece it apart. A Vogon game, a galactic computer game, etc. Oh, okay, so now we have the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, rightfully so, creating an entire library of different games. So yes, there you go. It's a rich property with lots of potential right there. Okay, with the last 2 minutes, we have at least 3 more posts here. I'm going to try and hit them all before we run out of time. The first one is again from Mr. Wolf, who says, topic idea. Kickstarter, crowdfunder, or pre-order system, or some games don't make it to retail that are on Kickstarter. That, again, we may just have to have another whole Kickstarter episode. It's a very rich topic, almost as rich as the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, but I like that. Crowdfunder or pre-order system. Quick response. I think it is treated as both, which I think is fair because I think it is a tool, a platform that is interesting to see what people come up with it, how people come up with how to use it. So I'm of the mind where I don't complain that people use Kickstarter a certain way. You're using it as a pre-order. That's not right. If the platform can support it, then I think it's neat that people can use it that way. There are times I think Kickstarter is abused, but that's a whole nother topic, maybe for that episode, but not now, because we're going to get another comment by Kabuki who says, in response to something, same here, I backed Rising Sun for the same reason as Chaz, and didn't back Blood Rage. I have since played Blood Rage and liked it, but didn't love it, like some do, so I don't own it. Kabuki, it's like you're reading my mind. That's exactly how my response is to Blood Rage, and I'm hoping that Rising Sun has that extra layer of neato-ness that makes it a thing I like having and can replace the Blood Rage itch and continue being present in the game playingness. Okay, I've almost run out of words. So we're going to say that Christian is going to end us off by saying, totally irrelevant to me as I've never played it. Well, that was not helpful. So we're going to go and we're going to redo the search and we're going to find the last chat comment. I'm scrolling all the way down. And Trevin mentions, Ryan says yes to a HeroScape episode. Awesome. But Trevin says, just in response to the earlier question about Geek and Sundry, he says, there was an expansion for Munchkin based on the Guild. So there you go. It has already kind of weaved its little finger tendrils into the gamosphere a little bit. So with that, I'm going to wrap up here. And I'm going to go and try to find more ways to work gamosphere into my daily routine today because I just coined that phrase and I really like it and I'm going to use it and I'm going to make it a thing. So until next time that we get the chance to get together, I hope that you enjoy your own gamosphere and you also get the opportunity to join us on the Pair of Dice Paradise and Dice Tower YouTube channels where hopefully you will subscribe, because that is a thing that makes us feel good. And you will also comment, because that's another thing that makes us feel good, engaging with the community. And you'll join us on Facebook and Twitter, because again, goodness is how it is, making feel to engage in those places in that way. And yep, Gamosphere completely used up my vocabulary for the day. I'm out of words. So with that, it's time for me to bid adieu. But I just want to say thank you to the live streaming chat, who once again, along with me, has been playing another episode of The Metagame. Thanks, and take care. Gamosphere.